Welcome back to an episode of Overnight Success. I'm so excited to have Amy Weiss, the founder of Amazing at Home, with us today. Her journey spans so many different verticals. I've learned a lot from her in starting a business, launching a business, exiting a business, working with AI. One of the first AI workshops I ever saw was from Amy, probably 2 years ago now. So you've always been on the front end of this. And I know you've exited and had a successful launch through Amazon and so many other avenues. And today we're excited to dive in and learn more about what that is of your journey from becoming a founder and exiting and now what you're up to and all of the pieces in between. So Amy, without further ado, please share your story with us on the overnight success.
Well, thank you, Christy. It's so good to be here. Um, you know, I think all of us founders can relate when we hear the term overnight success. That we wish that it was that easy, right? Because it's not an overnight success, right? It is a what I like to call a series of failures that eventually lead to something that looks like success. So for me, I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Air Force for almost 20 years of my life. And I always kind of was a type of person that carried around a book of ideas. I always had ideas. I swear Pinterest was my idea first. It doesn't matter because someone else took it to market, right? And I would always start little side hustles while I was in the military. For example, I started selling on Amazon in 2007 when I was in college while I was in the military. And I saw this little button. I was buying textbooks on Amazon and I saw this little button on Amazon that said, "Sell yours here." And I was like, oh, great. I can buy a discounted textbook and I can turn around and flip it. And, for me, that was important. So I've always been a side hustle kind of girl, and I've always kind of had ideas. And I was working in cybersecurity for the military in 2017, and I had this idea for a new version of a cat litter box. And I hated cleaning the cat litter box, and the smells gave me horrible migraines, and I was just very sensitive to them. And so I thought there must be a better way. And every time I would go TUI with the military, I would try to sketch a better version of a litter box. And every time I'd get to the end of my sketch, I would realize that I've already tried something similar and this wasn't going to work. So I did this for 6 or 7 months, and this was a big enough of a problem for me that I stayed with it. Sometimes other ideas, I'm like, no, I move on, right? But this one, really stayed with it because I didn't want to get rid of my pets, and I didn't want to continue getting migraines, and I had tried so many things. And one morning I woke up and I had an aha moment. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh wow, the problem is the litter box. If I could just create something outside of the litter box that I could dump the litter box into, then it would be very easy and quick to clean the litter box. So I got up soon as Home Depot opened. I was sketching this idea. As soon as Home Depot opened, I was there trying to keep my secret a secret. And I built my first 2 prototypes that day in my garage out of wood and hardware mesh and waste bin. And I tried them and they worked amazingly. It was so cool. Long story short, used that prototype every day over time. And I realized the odor from the litter box was completely gone. I thought I was just inventing a faster way to clean the litter box, but in that, I had actually eliminated the odor too. And I thought maybe I had just gone nose blind because I was working with it so much. So I invited my girlfriend over. She just has dogs, she doesn't have cats. And I brought her into my little laundry room with 3 litter boxes that I cleaned the day before. And I said, "Do you smell anything?" And she's like, "This is amazing. I smell nothing." She's like, "I've never been at somebody's house with cats and been this close, like, I'm looking at 3 litter boxes," and she's like, "I smell nothing." And I'd cleaned them the day before. So I knew that not only I knew I had to bring this thing to market. I knew that it wasn't just for me, this wasn't just my own prototype. I knew I had to figure this out. I had an MBA, I had a couple of undergraduate business degrees, but I'm in cybersecurity in the military. Like, I don't know how to take this rickety prototype and turn it into a product on the market. So I start calling design firms. I try it out for Shark Tank season 18, started calling product design firms, and they wanted $30,000 or more to turn my drawing into another drawing. And I was like, okay, so wait, let me just get this straight. You're gonna need about $200,000 by the time I even have like a website up, and you're not even helping me with marketing. And what? Well, how is this possible? How can anybody who has an idea bring it to market when these are the resources available to them? And this just honestly, Christy, pissed me off. I was like, if I'm an educated woman and I've been in a male dominated career field for 20 years and I can run a military mission and fight a war, well, why can't I figure out how to bring a product to market? And why are so many people like me with resources and education screwed out of this process? And I let that fuel me. And I said, okay, guess what? I was a teacher in the military, I was an instructor in the military. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to share with everybody who will listen along the way. And that is what I did. I started cold calling manufacturers. I built my own 3D printers, like we had to have multiple different sizes so that we could print this thing. Eventually, when I went to manufacturers, they were asking for my business card. And I was like, no, 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 I don't do this. And they're like, yeah, but nobody comes to us with these ideas this well developed. And I was like, okay, whatever, I still need to bring this product to market. So anyway, along this journey, I started gaining followers. I would put stupid videos out on the internet, like, look what I learned today. And I knew Amazon because I'd been selling on Amazon since 2007. So I knew I could launch the product there. I just had to get the product in a position where I could actually sell it to a consumer and not, in a wooden prototype version. So yeah, I went through that whole journey. I gained followers along the way. And before I knew it, I was quitting my job not only to be launching my business, but to be helping what is now thousands of entrepreneurs launch their products on Amazon, TikTok, their own websites, in brick and mortar retailers and beyond. And I never thought, they say when you have a plan, God sometimes has other plans for you. So yeah, I grew that business to over 7 figures and I exited it in late 2024. I was so amazed when somebody gave me an offer for my brand. So I got multiple offers and yeah, I exited it. And now I am working on my next brand as well as continuing to be a teacher and a helper and a business mentor, helping thousands of brands do the same, taking their ideas from concept to launch.
Amy, I got chills as you shared that story because you're right. Let's go. Let me back up. There's a lot to dissect here, but first and foremost, clearly not an overnight success. You have put in the work, you've put in the reps, you've called, you've showed up even when maybe you didn't want to, right? And so kudos to you on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, Pinterest was my idea first because knowing that you're in CPG, you're in more of a physical product. That's a SaaS line of work. So I'm curious how that plays out because we haven't even touched on how you leverage AI. I know that you use AI, and I think that that's super powerful, especially in this interesting kind of world we're living in today. It's 2026, and there's so much happening in technology and AI that we are still figuring out, right? And I think you are on the forefront of that. So I want to dive into that today too, which I didn't hear much in your story. But in your story, what I did hear is you went for the hard things and you trusted that you were solving a problem. And so when it's that close to you, you're able to say, I'm not giving up on this because there's that passion, right? So what drove you to keep showing up? And I love too that you said, it hit me at 2 in the morning because that's when the best ideas come, right? It's like it wakes you from your sleep and you're ready to just jump in and say, I had this aha moment, but it took years to get to, or it took months, excuse me. I think you said 7 months. It took 7 months to even get to that point. And then from there, you were able to say, okay, I'm going to go figure it out. Did you have mentors helping shape that? Did you just pick up the phone or Google and online and say, how do I figure out more? Like, let's dive in a little bit more into the journey of 2007 to 2024. There was so much work that you put in there. And how did you not give up on this idea of continuing to build?
Well, I feel like there's 2 questions in there. So the first, I got my little pencil over here, I'm a note taker. The first question you asked me is like, what drove me? What kept me going? And, I think that in being a business consultant now and helping so many founders, I can tell you that that is one of the most important things, is that you have that drive, you have the why that is so strong. And for me, I'd had all these ideas, Pinterest was one of them, but like, I had had all these ideas over the years, and I'd started a few ideas. I had a nonprofit, a few different things that I'd done while I was in the military. Um, but I'd never really gone any further than ideating. And, yes, I started a few small businesses, but I never really grew them to become anything, what people would know, like worldwide. And with this one, it was different because I literally I used this prototype every single day, and I could not imagine ever, ever, ever in my life going back to the old way of cleaning the litter box and the old stink. And that is what kept me going because I was like, people really need this. Like, they don't understand how bad they need this. But when I get it out there, they're going to be so happy. And not only is it going to make for happier, healthier people, but it's going to make for happier, healthier pets. Because when you don't clean a cat's litter box, they tend to be not so happy. So, it's going to really change the world. This was something that I saw that could really, really change things. So that's what kept me going. And whenever I talk to founders and on the business consulting side, and they're just like, yeah, I was thinking about maybe doing this or maybe doing this. What do you think? What do you think is going to, help me with my goal of quitting my job or bring me the most money the fastest? Give me the formula. And I always know when someone comes at me with something like that, that they're not going to make it because they don't have something inside that says, I need to do this. They don't have a bigger why besides, oh, I just want more money. Guess what? When you get more money, it doesn't necessarily make you happy. You need something else. You need something that drives, right? Money's really nice. Like, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about that part, but it's not everything. And so whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, "Oh, I really want to start a business on Amazon and, or on one of these e-commerce platforms, and I want to quit my job and I want more money." It's not it. You need something deeper. You need a why. You need to have a reason because let me tell you, every single time you come up against a challenge, and I came up against challenges during this process, your why needs to be stronger than you quitting because it is scary. It is scary to leave a 6-figure job in cybersecurity when your husband doesn't work and you're paying the mortgage to be an entrepreneur and make all your own decisions and be your own boss. That is scary. But what is even scarier is not believing in your why enough and, wanting to quit and leave it. And I just couldn't believe like I didn't ever want to leave this idea. I knew I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't do something with it. And that is what kept me going. So that's the answer to your first question. And your second question was there people that helped me? Like, where did I go? Like, because obviously I didn't just know all this stuff. It didn't come out of, I wish it came out of thin air. And I was thinking, that my business degrees, I had 2 undergraduate business degrees and a master's degree in both cybersecurity and an MBA. You would think like, "Oh, maybe I could start a business." No, like, I didn't know what the heck to do, so what did I do? I started, going on my lunch hour. So I had this job where I'm leading cybersecurity teams for the military, and I'm going on my lunch hour to beginners classes at the University of Texas San Antonio Small Business Development Center. I'm going to classes on my lunch hour and after work to learn the basics of how do you start a business? How do you start a marketing plan? How do you do all these things? And I knew I needed to learn. Knew I needed to network. I knew I needed to fill gaps. So that's what I was doing. I was literally every chance I got, I invested in a few classes on Amazon had changed since I started selling, so I invested on courses for that. I was listening to podcasts on topics like inventing, on topics like e-commerce and what it was today. Every chance I got, I was listening to every podcast. Like when I was in the car driving, I was listening to podcasts. When I was, in cooking dinner, I'd have podcasts on. Like I became obsessed with mastering this and figuring it out. And so I was going to classes. Luckily, a lot of people don't know your tax dollars already pay for a lot of these free resources. So I used all of them. I went to SCORE. SCORE has a mentorship program. I went and met with mentors. I put together my business plan. I went to the UTSA Small Business Development Center. I went to Launch San Antonio. I went everywhere. And now I teach at those places to give back because they helped me, so I was able to network and just start figuring it out. So that is the hopefully a good answer to your questions there.
Yes, powerful. Amy, this is so good. And I appreciate you dissecting those questions because I do know that sometimes I ask broad questions, and the goal is that whatever's coming up for you to share that part of the story. So thank you. First and foremost, I wanted to say thank you for your military service. You put in the work and the time. And so I want to acknowledge that. Also, really want to acknowledge your why. As an entrepreneur, as somebody who's been at this now for almost 7 years, I think having a driven why is the most powerful thing. It's the vision, right? It's the I'm serving, I'm showing up. I know I might not know the whole pathway to get there, but I'm going to figure it out because I want the end outcome. And to your point, it cannot just be about money. It has to be about something bigger than that. And so you worded that very eloquently, and I appreciate that. And I was thinking too how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? That phrase that comes up is you took the step, one step at a time. And I love that you continued to show up and learn the things that you didn't know. And to your point, you would think you got an MBA, but the thing is that the world is so different than what you can learn in a textbook. And so what I love is that you went out and you learned from experience and you showed up and you said, I'm going to figure this out. I want to know a little bit more about how you decided on the kind of, and maybe this is a weird question, but like you invented this new way of a kitty litter box, something that's been around for a long time. And as someone who does not and has never owned a cat, but my brother owns cats, is I've always had dogs. And so I have been to friends' houses and family that have cats, and I know the smell you're speaking of. But how did you actually fix this? Because what I heard is I put some 2x4s together in the garage and now all of a sudden it's fixed. I'm like, that's not exactly what happened. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the piece of paper to invention to selling. And also this is a bit of a tangent here, but you're an international speaker as well. So when you're talking about giving back and you give this insight to other business founders, I know that you have the experience. And when we look at mentorship and giving back, you're coming from learned experience. And to your point is being clear on that why. I'm just soaking it all in, and I know my audience will as well. So thank you for sharing. And I know that was very big and broad again, but I saw you take notes. So let's hear it.
Well, it's true. I did leave out a lot of gaps, but audience here, Christy gave me 5 to 7 minutes to tell my story. So, I had to leave out some gaps, but I knew we were going to dive in a little bit further. So, how did I solve this problem? Well, I think this is an important lesson because in working with inventors and in working with people who are trying to solve problems for consumers, it's important to make sure that your idea, your problem that you're trying to solve, um, is better than existing ideas that are out there and that you can price it at a competitive rate. So there's a lot that kind of goes into this, right? It's got to be a better mousetrap. It needs to be priced at a price people will pay for it. And you need to validate that your solution is seen that way by consumers before you launch this product. And so for me, I 3D printed a version of this. And so and how this kind of works, right? It's not a litter box. That was the hardest part. I actually invented something that doesn't exist. So I not only had the hard job of communicating to the consumer, this is not a litter box. And oh, by the way, it's not a scoop either. Every time I tell people I invented a better way to clean the cat litter box, they go, "Oh, it's like one of those automatic litter box thingies?" And I'm like, "No, it's not a litter box." And they don't get it. Like they just don't get it. And oh, by the way, Christy, you don't own cats, they own you. So, but, I always find it funny the way cats are. They're like, "I don't care about you. You just do your thing. You do you, boo boo." That's what cats say. Um, but, um, but yeah, so, I knew every time I came up with a sketch, at the beginning, I thought, oh, I just need a better version of a litter box. But I would sketch automatic versions or maybe one with a sifter built in. And it was essentially a different version of the same thing that already exists that I had already tried. So the sifter ones, the problem is the goo, when the cat uses the litter box, it gets stuck onto those holes. And
Ew.
so it's very hard to sift. And yeah, I mean, you could see my face right now. If you're listening and you can't see my face right now, it's got a really icky look on it. So what happens when the cat uses a litter box that has the sifter integrated is those clumps in the clumping litter actually get stuck onto those holes. And what I found out why there's no odor with my solution is because those clumps are the stinkiest things you have ever come across in your life. I'm pretty sure we could win wars if we use those as weapons. But yeah, they're disgusting. And so when you're breaking it apart, whether you're using a litter box scoop and you're scraping the bottom, the stuff that gets stuck on the bottom of a litter box, or you're breaking apart those clumps, it contaminates the clean litter. And that's why the litter box stinks even after you've cleaned it.
Hmm.
And I
It's-
didn't know that until I invented my solution, and suddenly the odor went away and I didn't understand why. So then I started digging in. The automatic litter boxes that rotate or run a comb through, they're doing the same thing. They are breaking apart the clumps as they're cleaning, and now you've got a really disgusting mess to not only clean up, but all that clean litter is now contaminated. So, my solution, it's essentially a giant scoop. So you know the little scoops, right? I just made a giant one with a bin underneath, and that's what my utility patent protects is the sifting with a bin underneath, like a holding space underneath. And so you just pick up the litter box instead of scooping it and searching for treasures or pushing a button for it to clean. You pick up the whole thing and you dump it in to my big old scoop. And the nasty stuff stays on top and the clean litter goes through to the bottom, to the holding bin on the bottom. And whatever's stuck on the litter box after you pour it out, you can just scrape it off and put it in the trash instead of contaminating the rest of the litter. And so you throw away all the nasty stuff at one time. This big scoop is removable and it has a little foot built in. So you get to dump it all in the trash at one time. You don't have to touch anything. You don't have to search for treasures with the little scoop. You just done. Dump and done. And then you pick up the lower bin and you put the clean litter back into the box and you are DONE done. So you can clean up to 3 litter boxes in under 60 seconds. And you eliminate odor for up to 20 days. You can use the same litter. So it is with no odor. It is incredible. So you save a ton of time, a ton of money. And so despite the fact that our product was more expensive than, we sold this for about a $50 price point on Amazon, Walmart, and major online retailers as well as our own website, despite the fact that it was more expensive, it was so effective that we got so many 5-star reviews because people were like, this is a game changer. It's saving me so much time. It's saving me so much money. So that's how I solved the problem. That's what it is and how it works. Now, how did I get this product to the market? Like, what steps did I take? So first I built the prototype, right? First I sketched it, then I built the prototype, and then I 3D printed it. I even 3D printed a miniature version. So this is another tip that you can do. You can, if you have a big thing that you're making, you can actually 3D print a miniature thing. And so this helps you kind of still test to see if it works. So we always called this my little Barbie doll sifties, and my kids would play with it when they were little. But in the beginning, we created this kind of plastic version that had hardware mesh in, because this hardware mesh worked so good as like a scoop. But then when I went out to manufacturers and I said, hey, I want you to manufacture this plastic piece with hardware mesh built in, they said, that takes a lot of steps, and we're going to have to charge you for all the manual labor it's going to take for us to use these two different materials. So the designer that I was working with, he actually came back to me and he was like, Amy, you should just make the whole thing out of plastic. And then I was like, oh man, I have to, what kind of plastic? How do I do it? Right? I had to do all of this research. So I started going online, researching what kind of plastic are different things made out of. I started just kind of making my own class on, how to, I always learn things so that I can teach them to myself or others. It's just how I learn. So I went out there and I was like, okay, how are plastic things made? And what kind of plastic is used? And how do I choose the type of plastic? So I started going to the store. I learned that for polypropylene, which is plastic, I learned that the different types of plastic are actually in a little triangle on the bottom of the product with a number in them. So I started going to the retail stores and looking at cat litter boxes and cat litter scoops, and I'd flip the product over and I'd see the color, and I saw that every single litter box material was made out of polypropylene number 5, PP5. So then I knew that my product needed to be made out of PP5. And I worked with my friend Dallas, who I actually worked with in the military. He he told me that my prototype looked like, and my drawings looked like a jock strap, and that he could help me turn it into something that was a little better. So he came over to the house on weekends with his laptop, and he put my drawings and my prototype into 3D CAD software, and we developed this thing together. And it became kind of a squadron project, because at that time we didn't have 3D printers yet, and so a few of the folks at work had 3D printers at home. So we would print at different people's houses, different pieces, and then we would fit them together, and glue them together so that we could test this thing. And we couldn't wait to test it and use it. And because it was just became like everybody's kind of like little project and obsession. So yeah, we 3D printed. We talked to a lot of manufacturers so we could understand, like, how do we work this, and then we finalized the design in 3D CAD. We designed it for manufacturing, which is so important. There's a difference between designing something and designing it for mass manufacturing. So I got my molds made in China. I went through an intermediary in the US that knew some mold makers in China, and I paid $52,000 for my molds. Now I host trips to China, and I learned that I could have paid $13,000 for those molds. So that hurt a little bit. But, and not only that, the mold maker, this was a huge thing. I had a GoFundMe campaign. People were supporting me. I would go out to local markets on the weekends with my prototype, and I would just talk to people. And I would just say, hey, how do you clean the litter box? Do you have cats? Like, I would show them this, and they would come and, tell me, and I would just it was my market research. I had a free account on MailChimp, and on my phone, I would have a sign-up sheet. And if people were interested in it, I'd say, well, do you want to be part of my launch list? The people who came up and were like, oh my gosh, when can I get this? I need this right now. I was like, you want to be part of my launch list? Because, I'm going to give 20% off to all the people that support me. And I would just have them sign up on my phone right there, put their name and their email in. And this was like my research phase. So I would go, and the importance of a launch list is so great, right? So anyway, this mold maker, we were 6 months into the project, and they still had not delivered the mold. And the samples that they were giving me from this mold and they were supposed to have the mold done max 90 days. So they're already 90 days overdue. and they had cut into the mold too many times is what we were thinking was happening. But we're between China and here, and I'm going through this dude in the US who's not really talking to me. I still have a full-time job. I'm like, I got all these people supporting me, and I've got $50,000 on the line, and what the heck is going on here? Finally, I threatened them. I said, "Look, you're either gonna send somebody in, an inspector, because they just kept making excuses. Oh, yeah, they're still working on it. No, 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 no. You're either gonna send an inspector in or you're gonna hear from my lawyer. I'm done with this." So the MBA did help me there because I knew about, duty of care and some of these kind of things. And I was like, look, I'm gonna sue you for all the money that I'm losing by not launching this product. I have backers, you know what I mean? Then I got an email back and they said, they refunded all my money and I had to start completely over and find a new mold maker. They had cut into the mold too many times. And so I had to find a new intermediary, I had to find a new mold maker, and I had to tell all of my backers, look, I'm not giving up on this. I know it's been a long time. I know I was supposed to launch by now. It's fine. I'm going to find a new manufacturer. I'm going to find a new mold maker, and we're going to keep going. So I found a new manufacturer that had a mold maker that they knew of, and they coordinated the designs, and we were able to get the mold out within the 3-month time period. We shipped it from China to the US, and then we started mass production. But yeah, that is how I kind of moved from concept to launch.
Yeah. How long did that take? So the issue of the 6 months, I heard that part, but from concept, you were meeting with your Dallas, excuse me, you were meeting with Dallas on the weekends. You guys were building the MVP. Then you got to a manufacturer, which is also a big step. And then you were like, hey, I'm trying to get to market. Like, I have other questions, but I'd love to know the timeline there.
It was about it took a little over a year. I think it was about 18 months total because I came up with this idea in 2017 and I launched it in late 2018.
Okay, cool. Well, and that timeline seems short to get into market and build an MVP and really I think what I heard is that you had the grit to persevere and really push through those obstacles, but also navigate things that you didn't know and not be afraid to show up and talk to customers. Because the thing is that what I heard is that you believed in the product so much. And let me tell you, Amy, I just learned a lot more about cat poop than I thought I'd ever know in my whole life. Because
Me
ultimately,
too.
yeah, you became an expert. You became an expert on the product, which is the plastics. You became an expert on the issue or the problem, which was the poop. And then you validated it with your customers. And to your point, a launch list is so powerful because that helps you understand that you're validating in the market too. And then that shows people who are invested in interested in investing in you or helping you get that 50K. It's like, look, we already have list of raving fans. Like, they want this thing. I just need to get it to market. And so everything you're talking about in the business life cycle is so powerful. And I really hope that people are taking all the golden nuggets, because this is case in point. Like, Amy came up with these visionary ideas for years and years and then said, that's the problem that I'm going to solve in the marketplace. And I want to fast forward us a bit. If there's anything else you want to add in that, feel free. But I do want to fast forward us to this idea. You mentioned China a couple of times. So you're an international speaker. You are helping launch businesses online and locally. You are in San Antonio, and so or adjacent San Antonio. And I don't think that's ever, from where I've learned about you over the last couple of years, is your location has never hindered you. And so you're building this thing globally. Let's hear a little bit more about what that looks like, because I think a lot of people maybe are afraid of expanding internationally, or even like, who am I to go play in these bigger markets? How do I get there? Right. So I'd love to just kind of hear your insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is such a thing as expanding too fast. Especially in the patent process. I mean, do I need a worldwide patent? Do I need trademarks in all these countries? I think it is important to start in your primary market to really, you know, focus in your primary market. But when it comes to sourcing, you should be thinking globally. So, what I see hinder a lot of inventors, and it hindered me. I mean, look at how much I could have saved. I take these China trips every year, twice a year. I bring entrepreneurs to China. And China is the world's manufacturer. They have just an incredible amount of manufacturing capability and raw material capability that we just don't have anywhere. You will not find it anywhere else in the world. And I know this because I own trade shows in two other parts of the world, in Latin America as well as the Middle East. And the reason I started those trade shows is because there's nothing outside of Asia that is multi-category. Nothing. Yet there's manufacturers, they just have no place to go. They don't have these beautiful, amazing multi-category trade shows or resources to talk to each other and build things like they do in China. And so, that is why I launched it in other places. But the first time that I went to China, I went to not only have other followers join me, some of my followers join me. I invited people. I was like, hey, it's my first time going to China, but I'm going to go and you should come with me. And my first time going, I couldn't I couldn't believe what I didn't know. I mean, I knew that I had to learn a lot, but remember my product, I paid $50,000 for my molds. And I launched a few other products that I sourced from China at the same time because I didn't want to just be a one product brand. So I launched some cat accessories, cat care accessories, and I sourced those using the website Alibaba.com. But I didn't actually know what manufacturing looked like. I hadn't seen it. I didn't know what mold making looked like. I was just blind, honestly. I was trying to learn as much as I could, but I was just kind of hopefully filling in the gaps and visualizing what I thought it looked like. And let me tell you, it doesn't look anything like that. So I go to China and I go to the world's largest trade show. It's called the Canton Fair. It happens twice a year. It is the largest influx of Westerners to China twice a year. It's over 1 million people come to this thing. It's insane. There are over 80,000 manufacturers in a space the size of 4 large airports. When I got there the first time and looked at it, it was so massive. If you had to walk it, it's like something like 320 US football fields. That is what you're walking by booth after booth. And there's 3 phases. And every phase, 80,000 new manufacturers come in. It is the most massive thing you've ever seen in your life. And I felt like Oprah Winfrey hosting a trip to China, like she used to do with her groups. I was like, "China," just like, "You get a manufacturer, you get a manufacturer. This is amazing." It was just unbelievable. And I went on factory visits, took other people on factory visits, saw firsthand how things were made, and learned how to talk with manufacturers and learned how to build relationships. And I couldn't believe I saw how molds were made. I couldn't believe it. And to this day, people who come with me, they could be running 7, 8-figure businesses. And they when they come with me to China and actually meet manufacturers and do this stuff face to face, most of them save on average 50% of what they were paying before. One of my products I was paying $9 a unit for landed. And when I went to China, I found a manufacturer that could do it for 2. And not only could that manufacturer do it for 2, they had more capabilities than my current manufacturer. They could actually print on this material. So I could now bring different types of floor mats to the market that no one else had, all because I took a trip. So that trip cost me a couple grand, but who cares? It paid for itself. If I would have gone to China 3 years earlier, I believe everything happens for a reason, but if I would have gone 3 years earlier, I would have saved over $40,000 on my molds. And so it's a lot. It's a really important business lesson that you don't know what you don't know until you go. And you really need to go and learn and do the things because it is going to enhance you in so many ways and give you resources that you did not have before. And I think it's really it's the same thing like hiring a consultant, right? Um, I didn't hire a consultant until I think I was 7 months into my launch on Amazon, and sales just weren't going as well as I wanted them to, and finally, I hired a consultant, and within 3 months of working with this consultant, like, everything was fixed and my sales were good, and so when people come to me and they're like, "Amy, you're kind of, I just I don't know that I can foot the bill to pay you to help me," and I'm like, "Actually, you can't afford not to foot the bill because I know the people that have concepts, like, I'm working constantly with clients that have concepts, and I'm saving them thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on every call. Because you think about it, many people think, "Oh, I need a patent attorney and it's gonna cost me $100,000 for my patent." Actually, a patent agent can do it for 1,000. Like, these are the things you don't know, right? So you really have to invest in yourself and invest in help. And that has been like a big that has been such a big growth lever for me because now, yeah, I am considered an international expert. I speak on not only Alibaba.com stages, but Amazon stages. I'm a TikTok partner as well. And I've been paid even to go to China and speak to huge groups of the top businesses in China about e-commerce. And every line that I say has to be translated. And so that is the thing is like I've gone global because I said yes. Because I said yes, I invested in myself and I stepped over my fear. And maybe the military helped me with this. I know how to take the hill and not think about it, right? But that's the thing that we have to do. That's where grit is born. You got to just step over your fear, swallow it down, and move forward because you're going to get something out of it for sure.
Let's go. Yes, yes, yes. Repeat it for the people in the back, Amy. That's so powerful. I love all of this. And one big thing that you've been touching on is learning and investing and showing up. And this has been a kind of a common theme that I've heard through the whole episode. So you mentioned earlier some podcasts that you really like. They taught you so much. And times have changed, new influencers come on the market and, we're all learning from each other and things like that. It's a global society in that sense, but would love to hear what kind of tools, whether that be a book or a podcast or an influencer that you really have leaned into that has helped you gain the knowledge that you have today.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, there's so many, and there's different ones for different stages. I think in the very beginning, one of the biggest books that I read that was so powerful for me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I had no idea that there's this life that the rich live, that I had access to. I grew up super poor, like very, very poor, single mom. I had hand-me-down clothes at best. Um, I didn't have access to, like, really good food and, like, I had no access to travel or the life that I live now. And, I didn't even know. I thought that, that was some kinda dream that was only in the movies, if that makes sense. I didn't know. And then when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I realized that, okay, wait, this could actually be real. And people could actually be living a different life than I live. And I might not actually have to trade my time for money for the rest of my life. And I didn't know that. And I chose to believe in that and dive into that further. And so those types of themes of things were the things I started investing in after that. I read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, The Secret, all of the mindset things. And then I started networking outside of, yeah, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I couldn't even name them all now. And I read a lot of books because when I started leaning into books, I realized that all this education, I have 5 college degrees. Not only that, I've been through so many military schools. I mean, I have so many cybersecurity certifications. Like I'm like a digital forensic expert, and like you name it, I've got all this education, right? But it's nothing compared to learning from people who've had these experiences. So I invested in Tony Robbins Mastery University, and I went to all of Tony's events for 2 years. And I read all of Mike Michalowicz's books, Clockwork and all of I mean, I was a total fan of his, and then he later was on my podcast, which was amazing. I started my own podcast, which forced me to sit down every week with a different expert and learn, which was so cool. And then I just read so many books, and so my advice is I don't wanna give specific resources. My advice is start I had to realize that I needed new friends. They say your network is your net worth, right? And that is so true. I got to have dinner the other day with billionaire Jeff Hoffman, the guy who created Priceline.com and Booking.com and the airport kiosk. And he was just the most humble, most amazing guy, right? And so I invest in things like that because every time, like going to China, every time I do that, I step outside of myself and I see what is possible, and it allows me to take a new leap and actually believe like, oh, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could help people with their businesses. At first, when people asked me to start consulting with them, I was like, no, I don't do that. You don't understand. Like, I still work a full-time job. I'm just trying to launch this product. I'm just sharing what I'm learning along the way. Finally, I was like, fine, meet me on Google Hangouts, give me $50. I'll try to help you. I've been selling on Amazon for a little while. I'll try to help you. Well, those people had incredible success and they were spreading the word. And before I knew it, I had to quit my job because I was doing this full time on top of a full time job. So it was still scary though, but the way that I got through it was I just kept leaning into people that were saying, "Look, it's okay over here. It's possible to live over here. The grass can be green over here. Don't be so scared. I'm doing it every day." So I started listening to success stories, reading that book, reading all the books I could, understanding, and then hanging out. When I learned about events where people were going to be, I went and talked to people and said, "Hey, this is possible. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to figure it out." But yeah, so that's what I would suggest is just, Tony Robbins is a big fan is I'm a big fan of his, and he talks about the way that he learns is by mastery, and you become obsessed with it. And that is what you have to do. You have to be obsessed with becoming the person that you want to become and the life that you want to live. And that means you go on YouTube and you research it. You go on whatever you got to do. Every book that's out there, you read it. You've got audiobooks now. You've got AI tools like Notebook LM where you can put 20 YouTube videos into one and it'll give you a summary and you can ask it questions. Like you have no excuse. Every single resource that you could ever want, all the knowledge, the tools are available to you. And all you have to do is stop listening to your fear and go get them. And you do have the time. I know I was a mom. I had 2 kids. I had a full-time job. You have the time. You just have to choose to change your life and make it what you want it to be. And so that's the thing is like, it's not a specific tool or resource I'm going to give you. It's a mindset and it's a belief that you absolutely can do whatever you put your mind to. And now I try to be one of those permission givers. I try to tell other people, hey, this is possible. I'm over here. I'm living it. I'm not just making this stuff up, right? It is possible, but you have to take those steps. So just become obsessed, become a master of this stuff.
That's so powerful. Okay, Amy, this has been a fire episode. I've learned a lot. I've loved hearing more about your story as well. Before we tell the audience where they can come find you or what resources that you have, I'd be curious, is there any question that I didn't ask you that you'd like to dive into just a little bit more? I realized too, I mentioned I would ask you what success is, but I think you've touched on it so much. So you can answer both or one of those questions, but I am curious what your thoughts are there.
um, I think that it's important for people to know that there are I wanna talk about AI for a second. AI is amazing, and, we all know we can have a conversation with ChatGPT, that's what most people are doing now, right? But it's growing faster than most of us are gonna be able to keep up. I can now build an entire website with a database and Quizlets built in and everything, like, with one prompt, and it goes and does its thing. I can build apps on my lunch hour that are better than the paid apps that are out there. We are now approaching a time when it is very quickly going to overtake many, many businesses. I don't even use my designers anymore. I used to have, full-time designers, full-time copywriters, don't use any of them anymore. And now it's gone from me having a conversation with AI to now my agents work on their own independently. And basically, I think that it's very important for two things. One, that AI is going to tell you what you want to hear. It's kind of a yes man. So it's important that you kind of still sit down with your piece of paper and think for yourself. And you'll quickly get overwhelmed at all of the information AI throws at you, and you'll lose sight of your own goals. So just reminder to I want you to be the bank and not the banker. I want you to own a business because that's a sellable asset. And I want you to own a business that you're not trading your time necessarily for money because those businesses are going to be very quickly gone. So thinking about building those assets, right? And absolutely use AI, but don't forget to stay true to your own, plan on paper first and then use AI to help you do it faster. Because there's a lot of power in that, and you might lose if you're just going to AI looking for all the answers. And then the second thing is spend some time on your mindset because what's coming is going to when a lot of people lose their jobs and their businesses because of how fast AI is growing. And, I've been teaching AI now for a few years. I've been deep into this. I had the very first AI business summit several years ago. Um, and how fast it's growing faster than I even anticipated it would. So I think it's just very, very important for people to realize they need to find meaning in something other than their work. And they need to understand that happiness comes from within. And so if I could give you those two pieces of advice, one, plan on paper, AI is your tool, but build a business with where you're not trading your time for money, where you have a growth asset there. It's great books about that, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They'll kind of get you started on that. And then also really focus on your your own mindset and your own happiness and understand how to love yourself and have that grounding because a lot of people are going to really struggle when things are changing so rapidly. It's hard for us mere mortals to understand.
Yeah. It's the AI, we could have a whole episode on that, but we won't do that today. Um, but that's
Yeah.
really powerful advice, and I appreciate that, Amy. So my last question to you is where can people find you? You've been a wealth of knowledge. You have so much wisdom. What I love about every time I interact with you is you're a go-giver. You want to help others. You teach what you are learning and you're always learning new things as we could see in this podcast. You kind of figure out how to break down those barriers, and so I love our audience to follow you and connect with you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at amazingathome.com. That is my website, amazingathome.com. And I have an Ask Amy form right on my homepage where if you have a business idea or you are just struggling to, whatever it is, you can fill out that form right on my homepage and I'll actually send you a video of how I might be able to help you or just giving you some advice on that issue. And so amazingathome.com is a great way to get in contact with me. You can follow me, Amy Weiss, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can follow me at Amazing at Home on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, I've been on hundreds of podcasts. I mean, probably thousands at this point. So if you just Google me on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, if you like hearing this girl talk, I don't know. I mean, it's not fun for me to listen to my own voice, but if you like it and you want to hear some stories, there's definitely some out there for you. Come see me at any event. I'm always at events. And get outside of your bubble, but yeah, absolutely amazingathome.com or Amy Weiss on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you guys.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amy. And we'll drop the show notes, the links as well. Amy, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, share. Amy's voice is a powerful one. I've heard her given many a talks on, building businesses and AI. So highly recommend go finding her online. And thank you again, Amy, for your time today.
Thank you, Christy, for having me. Thanks everybody for listening.